doesn't take very long. There we go. So I will say an official good morning to everyone. Thanks for being here. Sorry, I have no idea what's going on with me this week. I had tummy troubles earlier in the week, and then now I have done something to my knee, and it's a knee that I've injured before. So I don't know what's going on. I wish I could tell you a great story, like, I got in a fight, or I tackled somebody, or I was doing ski jump tricks or something and I hurt myself. I have no idea. It just started hurting, and now I can really literally barely walk on it. So, and it's just got progressively worse. Yesterday I started off, I could walk a little bit on it, and then as the day went on, it just got more sore. And last night it was excruciating. So, and then this morning I woke up and I thought, oh, it feels pretty good, until I put weight on it, and then I was like, whatever. So anyhow, enough about me. So we're gonna talk about social media today. We probably won't get it all done, so that we'll kind of have a bit of an overlap for next week. But before I do that, I just wanted to go to Google Classroom for 1 second. And just because of just the way this week has gone, with as far as the Google Classroom as the teacher goes, there's still 24 of you who have not handed that assignment in, and that's okay. I actually extended the deadline to tomorrow at noon. And if you need more time than that, as long as you get it into me, let's say by Sunday, by noon on Sunday or something, even, I won't deduct any marks for that. Okay. Also, and this is my own fault, my apologies, is the whole video assignment. One of the things that I forgot to mention was that in a regular Gmail account, you can't add like pop-up videos like I do. So I did add this video on a couple of different ways that you can do a video question without the pop-up video feature. That is a feature that's only available in the education side of things. So, so if you had a problem with that, or you skipped it because you weren't sure how to do it, it's there now. And then also in the checklist, and again, this is just my bad wording, and I apologize. I've already fixed it, not for you folks, but for next term for sure, where it says about the questions right here, that student requires a reply from students. So what I mean or meant by that is that a question that students would be kind of willing to answer or whatever. Okay. And that, you don't really necessarily have to reply back, but definitely a one that is just a question. And then of course the other one that I got a few emails or remind messages on was Bloom's taxonomy. And again, just to remind you what I mentioned in class was that really you need 3 different questions. So if you ask a couple multiple choice and a short answer, or a couple short answers and a multiple choice, you'd be mixing up Bloom's by sort of the hots and the lots areas, and that will be enough. So that's all I really am looking for. And I really am, yesterday in my class they were asking about sort of really things that are really granular and in the weeds. And I said, you know what, when I mark these, because I've got about 70 of these to mark, all I really do is I look at, do you have 3 questions? And is there a couple multiple choice, and is there a short answer? Yep, there is. You get full marks, kind of idea. Same thing with resources and material. People are you going to read what I put in there, or what I've added as material? Like, no, unless that's all you want me to do for the rest of the term is mark this project. So again, same idea. I'll look, do you have 3 materials? 1, 2, 3. Yep, check mark, kind of idea. Okay. Thoughts, questions about the Google Classroom?
Yeah, Brett, I got one.
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
So with the materials, I've included it below, so as a separate kind of assignment when you add it as a material. But I know that you can also just include it as the assignment in your
totally. And it's really kind of a preference, and no matter how you set it up, students will eventually get used to it. It's like, oh, the readings and resources are with the assignment, or the material is, Mr. Ran has got them, in a separate area. So kids will get used to that, and that's perfectly fine. Yeah. Okay. Anyone else? Okay. Well, Kayla, the 24-hour thing is that I don't want people leaving. I didn't want people leaving this project till the very last minute and then having 1,001 questions. Okay, so right now the whole 24-hour thing is right here, don't worry about that, right? You can, again, you can hand it in by, if you want, you need extra time, Sunday at noon. That gives you an extra couple of days, and I wanted to do that. So if anybody had questions today, I could answer them, and you could fix whatever you needed to fix or add whatever you needed to add. Okay. All right. Excellent question. Anyone else? No? Yeah. Okay. Thank you. All right. So what I want to do, I just want to show a really quick slideshow. Well, and I mean, when I say quick, I mean quick. Okay. And it's just about social media and just headlines that I'm gathering around social media. There's a couple of videos, and I'm not going to let it play because on your end, it's not going to play very well. But basically here, what this guy is saying in this video is that in social media, and again, I want you to put your teacher hat on or your teacher shoes on and think about the kids that you're going to be teaching, right? And what he's saying basically is that we let other people control our lives by what they post on social media, and then we try to be like them. And we all know that's unhealthy, right? Because what happens on social media is not always truthful. It is people polish the way they look. They only display or show that the wonderful things that are happening in their lives. They never show the things that are negative or bad things that are happening in their lives, and that really screws kids up. And it makes us have this false sense of what we should be, or how we should act, or how we should dress, or cut our hair, or whatever the case might be, right? So that's what this fella here is getting in, talking about in the video. This is one of the 3 videos that you were that had pop-up questions for the social media assignment. So the dead internet theory. Basically, if you haven't watched it yet, spoiler alert, it's about everything on the internet is kind of dead. Right? What you see is sort of ancient history and sort of how the internet sort of propagates itself based on what we put in there and all kinds of different things. So it's very interesting to watch. The fellow who does these videos, the Y Files, he's got great videos. If you're a conspiracy theorist person, he's a great guy to watch. And what I really like about him is he talks about whatever the topic is. And then in the end, if he can, he shows you how it's false, or he debunks it. But at the same time, he also says, you know what, I haven't found a way that this is not true, or something like that. So anyways, I really like him, and he's kind of a goofball, but and he talks to a fish. So but it's a good video. Okay. I'll just go past him there. So here's just some headlines, right? So this is kind of the newest thing that's happening down east, is that there are some Ontario school boards, sorry, my bad, that are suing Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok, Snapchat. And they're suing them for a whopping $4.5 billion because of the damages that the social media does to children. Right. I think in a previous lecture, I've talked about how the brain can rewire itself very easily. And if I didn't mention it before, I'm mentioning it now. After 10 minutes of video game playing, and we talk about like first-person shooter type games where everything's go fast. Your brain, within 10 minutes, it starts to rewire itself to be able to move at that pace, and for your eyes to adjust, and for your hands to do the things they need to do with the controllers and stuff like that. So in 10 minutes, your brain can start rewiring. So that's part of what this lawsuit's about. It's also about the other kinds of damages that social media does. We'll talk about those in a bit. This is the same one, but this one was from March 28th, and then this one was from, I can't remember what, this might have been from National Post. This one's from CBC, just talking about it again. And that one again is March 29th. And then this one's in May. So again, these are rewiring kids' brains, right? And if you think about TikTok, or you think about Snapchat, or even any of those social media platforms, everything happens so fast. It's like flick. And then what's happening is, again, kids' brains are getting rewired, and it's hard for them to concentrate in class. Now, maybe that says we need to change the way that we teach, but I'm not sure. And again, that's something that we'll all wrestle with kind of on our own. And of course, now with a ban of on cell phones in classes, that's going to change things as well. So one of the other things too, if you listen to the experts, is that, it says kids are compulsively using social media, but they've learned from the best. Well, who the best are their parents, right? That are on their phones all the time. So then kids see that, and we know that kids emulate adult and parental behavior, and you get this whole cycle of using social media and phones and all that kind of jazz. Okay. I'll just go past this video too. All right. So again, right. And if you didn't know, news alert here is that social media is designed to be addictive, right? It is as addictive as using a drug like cocaine, because when you use social media and you're going every 30 seconds to look, did somebody like my video? Did somebody add a heart? Did somebody do this? It releases a chemical in your brain. Does anybody know what that chemical is? It's dopamine, right? And it's the same chemical that gets released when you do cocaine or hard drugs. It's also, interestingly enough, the same chemical that gets released in your brain when you want sugar. So sugar kind of does the same idea to our brain, and that we crave it and we want it and we need it, right? So, and social media does the same thing. So, and again, that is a huge challenge for not only parents, but also for teachers on trying to engage students in meaningful learning, right? So, again, really interesting stuff. And I mean, as a sidebar, and I can't remember I always say this every year, so I never remember if I said it or not, but when the iPhone and the iPad first came out, Steve Jobs, right, if you know who he is, right, the Apple founder of Apple, would not let his children have those devices. You know why? Because he knew exactly the negative implications of using those devices with his children. So I think that's kind of interesting and a bit hypocritical, of course, of him wanting to sell devices to us, but he wouldn't let his own children use them. Kind of crazy. So, right. So here at University of Alberta, so let's bring it home, right? Right. It says just setting boundaries. And so when we're going to talk about this whole social media thing and the project, what we're going to talk about is there's positives and there's negatives. There's pros and there's cons of everything. And so what I want us to do is look at, with that assignment, is look at the pros and the cons, because I think there's some benefits for us, definitely as educators. And then, of course, there are benefits for parents. There's benefits for the kids. But again, you know what? The old saying, everything in moderation, right? And of course, we see here that kids get their first cell phones as early as grade 2 and 3. I mean, these are 7 and 8-year-olds. I don't know about you. In my personal opinion is that's way too young. But again, everyone has their own idea about it. Okay, so this one, we'll just pass that one here. Right. So BC. Right, our neighbors here, they put sort of on the back burner this social media harms bill, and they're going to work with social media platforms to make sure that it's easier for kids to stay safe online. Because not only is there this brain thing going on, but we also know that there's all kinds of nefarious, horrible things that go online, that happen in social media and online with kids. So Ontario is suing the heck out of social media, and BC is going to see if they can work with them. So. Right. Again, for ladies, for girls, right? We talk about body image and stuff like that. That is a real serious has serious implications again, because of you have this image of what you're supposed to look like, and then that causes all kinds of stress, anxiety, and all of that kind of stuff. And none of those things are healthy. Okay, right. Again, I'm back to Ontario for a sec. So not only are they banning cell phones in schools, but they're also going to crack down on vaping. We'll see how that works. Well, I don't know about that one. Right. I thought this is pretty interesting, right? So in this person's grade 9 math class, they decided to do a tally thing of notifications that they received during class on their devices. And of course, very interestingly, Snapchat is kind of the winner here. right? No Twitter. I thought that was pretty interesting as well. And all the different kinds of things that are going on here. So again, very distracting. If you think of a class of like 30 or 40 kids, that's a lot of stuff going on in a classroom that takes away from meaningful learning. This is just Denzel Washington doing an interview with the press, telling the press that they have a responsibility to report the news honestly and not just try to get the scoop and get the headlines and sell newspapers or whatever, or online media. So he's just saying there that you have a big responsibility. I'll just pass this one again here. So again, just some images coming up here of kids and cell phones, right? So I don't know if you've heard of this term before, this phrase, a phone-based childhood, but it's the big thing now. Instead of a play-based childhood where kids are outside playing, doing what things that kids should be doing, everybody's stuck on their devices. And so this is the newest sort of thing that I know, research that's coming out, and it's called a phone-based childhood, right? And just again, some images, thinking, look how young that little one there is, and he's just glued to that phone, right? Same thing here, right? I don't know how old this little fella is, but probably 2 or 3, right? Look at this little guy, can't even sleep without his device. This one really bothers me because you think about all of these kids sitting with each other, and instead of playing, they're all on a device. That's kind of, I don't really like that one. Right? Again, the whole idea of you're sort of in this little sphere, in this bubble, and that kind of idea, and you're missing out on all the great things that are happening outside. Right? Again, another picture here, just glued to their device. And then I thought this one is really interesting. If you look at this graph of self-harm rates of U.S. children aged 10 to 14, so that's kids that are in grade 4-ish and up. And the vertical line, the orange line, I added, and the reason I added that is because after 2010, when iPhones became really popular, you look at the self-harm rates, and they rise exponentially, like 600% more than it was way back here when it was just about 100, right? So after 2010, these things just skyrocketed. Boys kind of stayed even, maybe peaking a little bit here in the 20s, but definitely girls are the ones that are being affected by social media and those kinds of things the most. I always thought this was pretty good. What's the biggest social media platforms out there? Facebook. Again, yesterday when I polled the other class, nobody in that class uses Facebook basically, and in Twitter is the new MySpace, Kayla. Yeah, for sure. Right. And then YouTube, I thought was interesting as well, with almost 3 billion people, or 2.5 billion, getting, to 3. WhatsApp, not very many people use this one. That's more of a outside of North America app that people use. But again, 2 billion people use it. And again, look at Instagram, look at TikTok, right? Snapchat, I thought that would be way, way higher, but it's about 850 million, right? Opal, I love Facebook. And then there's some ones that are more for Asian countries. And then this is the other one that I thought that would be Pinterest at 522 million. But anyhow, so just some interesting stats. And if you think about that, you think about the population on the planet. And I'll show you some other numbers later on. Remember, they're just numbers, and numbers, stats can be massaged pretty much however you want to, display them. But it's just interesting stuff, right? There's lots and more numbers here. We're not going to look at any of these because there's just too many numbers. So basically, that's it for the slideshow. So again, I think the whole idea of this topic of social media dovetails really nicely into us just sort of heading out, leaving digital citizenship and moving on to social media. So just while I've got Google Classroom up here, there's stuff here for you to watch with pop-up questions for marks. Again, there are some resources in here for you to take a gander at. Of course, also here at the top of my list are all these AI podcasts. If you want to listen to them, they're optional. I will not test you or quiz you on any of those podcasts, but there are some really interesting listens in there if you haven't listened to them yet. And then I'll talk about the assignment towards the end of the class. Okay. All right. With that said, any thoughts or questions or comments? No? Everybody's good? Okay. So then I will just scooch back to my notes here and just go to my next page. So, all right. So social media. Let's define social media first. Okay. Oh, also, because I'm turned this way and my chat window is over here like this, if you put something in the chat that you want me to respond to, I'm not, just turn your mic on and go, hey Brad, can you answer my chat or whatever, okay? Because sometimes I get going and I miss them. So anyways, if we think about a definition of social media, it's I'll say any form of electronic communication, such as, of course, websites for social networking like Facebook, okay, where, and when we say websites, we could also add the word, I'll squeeze it in here, we could also add the word apps, right? So because most of us do this on our phone or a smaller device than your computer, right? So anyways, for social networking, where users create online communities to share information, ideas, personal messages, right? Which most of us use that almost exclusively for those kinds of things. And I'm going to just say other multimedia, like videos and things like that, right? And other, how about we just say content, even content, right? Period. Oops. Because I think we all know what kind of things that get shared on social media, right? So we've got all these, this rich set of multimedia things that we can absolutely, totally share. And so super cool. I want to show you this, just reminded me, speaking of videos. I'm just going to open this up. So this is, I'm just going to digress for a second or take a tangent here, is my first video that I created using AI. And all I did was type in a text prompt and it created, here, I'll play this video for you.
The scene opens in the heart of the majestic redwood forest. A lone hiker.
So anyways, it's about finding Sasquatch out in the forest. I don't know how well it'll play for you, but anyways, we'll just play it for a second.
The only sounds being the occasional crunch of leaves underfoot and the distant call of birds. Suddenly, something catches the hiker's eye.
I like that. This is hilarious.
One of the towering trees. The hiker stops and
anyways, I won't play anymore, but that whole video is just produced by me typing in text and saying, here's what I'd like to see in the video, and it put it all together. So that's the newest thing I know how to do with social media or with AI right now. So anyways, it's pretty interesting. Okay, let's go back to, well, where'd my thing go here? There we go. Let's go back to this. Okay, now, when we talk about, did I have that word in here anywhere? No, but we're going to have it here in a second. Okay. So one of the things that I think is good, and if we go back for 1 second, and you don't have, if you want, you can draw this, but you don't have to. If we go back and we think about our Bloom's pyramid, remember we had creating right here, create. What was the top one again? What was the very top one? Anybody remember? Starts with an S and an H.
Share or sharing.
Yep, sharing. Okay. So this is where social media has some power for us as teachers. Because when we talked about blooms, we talked about sharing, one of the things they said is that often us as teachers are really poor at sharing. We don't give ourselves enough pats on the back and share the great things that are going on in our classrooms. We kind of live in this little microcosm of just our little own world, and we don't share. But now with social media and and devices, it's so much easier for us just to go click, 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 and put those out on Instagram or whatever platform you want it to go on to, and you can share it with parents. And I mean, instantly. It's not like, oh, here's the monthly newsletter and here's some pictures of what we did this month. I mean, here's what we did today, right? So the next little piece here, I just want to write, is sharing our students' work on social media extends the reach of the classroom to the community and beyond. Kind of like Buzz Lightyear, beyond. Okay, so, and I think that's one of the powerful things. Again, we think about pros and cons. To me, that would be one of the pros, right? And again, as we think about the whole idea of sharing, there's also some things that we need to do, right? I mean, one is we need to have to have all of our students FOIP'd so that we have permission from their parents to display their images in a online social media sort of platform, whatever one that might be, or not. Of course, sometimes it's no, you don't have permission. And then the other thing is to think about again is we don't mix business with pleasure, right? We don't post what's going on in our classrooms on our personal account. If you want to be a social media sharer, is you need to have, create your, Mr. McDermott or whatever, your teacher name is, and create that account so that parents can get to it. Okay. And here I'm talking about social media. I probably haven't used social media for at least 5 years. So I sort of had a big breakup with social media about 5 years ago, and we just haven't got back together since then. So I'm probably a little bit out of the loop of what goes on, but my wife's pretty good at keeping me up to date on what's going on TikTok and Instagram and all that jazz. But again, having that separate account, and again, whatever platform it is that you choose to share on, have it separate from your personal stuff. Okay. So let's just talk about some numbers. So today's college students, that's you, today's college / if you want to put university, right? Today's college students, polytechnic students, today's college students average about, again, here's some stats. You could look this up, and I've seen different stats. We'll go with these numbers though for our use. Average about 4.5 hours per day online, like all using social media. Okay. And some of us, of course, are less. Some of us might be more, but that is a pretty big chunk of time in your 24-hour day. So, think about that. So again, if we don't allow students to have cell phones in class, that definitely might help decrease that number of hours, but there's no guarantee because we can't control what goes on outside of the walls of our classroom. So, okay. Also, generally speaking, again, globally, right? There are just about 5 billion social media users. I'll just squeeze it in here, right? That if you think that there's about 8 billion people on the planet, that's a substantial amount, which I think if we do the math, is somewhere around 60% of people on this planet use social media. They also say that, I'll just throw some other numbers in here, that by 2027, so just 3 years from now, that number will be about 6 billion. So, of course, the world's population will go up, but just some interesting stuff. Okay. All right. I'm going to add a new page, but if you need me to go back, I can, just with a press of a button, I can go back too. But let's talk about, let's do the pros first. We're going to do some of the pros here. So pros. Okay. And then we'll talk about the cons. But again, whether it's a pro or a con, you could literally flip that coin to be either one of those two things. It just depends on how you use it, right? So one of the pros is it helps. And again, from a teacher point of view, it helps students, or kids, if you want to put that word in there too, help students stay connected. With friends and family, with friends and family. Okay. And so, like I said, you could flip any one of these to be good or bad. So here's the con. Why is it that, we're spending 4.5 hours on our phones, on social media, scrolling, or liking, replying, all the other jazz? What is it that drives you or kids to want to be constantly on their phone, other than that dopamine hit? I'll ask your question in a sec, Cody. What is it that, other than the chemical piece of it, the brain piece of it, what drives people to want to be on social media all the time? Or they're, every 30 seconds you're checking their phone, right?
I'd say connectivity.
Yeah. We could use this term, right? FOMO. Right? The fear of missing out. I want to be connected to my friends. I want to know what's going on tonight. Is there parties tonight? What's going on the weekend? And if I'm not on my phone, I might miss it, or might not get invited, or whatever. And so kids, everyone has this fear of missing out on, I don't know, something, right? So that's one of the reasons that we have this high usage of phones and social media. Okay, so here's one pro. We'll cross this guy off here because we're talking about pros right now. Okay, it's a place, social media again, a place to express yourself. Okay. Now, of course, I'm going to add positively in there. Okay. Positively. Okay. Because of course you can also express yourself negatively, right? And we've all seen that on whatever social media, where people just, scream and yell at each other and call each other, bad names and things like that on social media. And so it's a place to express yourself positively. And again, if we think about social media and digital citizenship together, that's kind of what we want. It's like, yes, please use social media, but what I really want you to think about is, how are you going to use it positively? How are you going to leave a positive impression or a positive digital footprint when others, come after you? That kind of idea. Okay. Again, this could be positive and it can be negative, but we'll stick with positive. It can help employers find you, right? And what I mean is that, I'm looking for a couple people to hire for my company or my business or whatever, and I can go on LinkedIn, or I can go somewhere like Facebook and or wherever and put an ad out, or put a shout out and say, hey, I'm looking for a couple people to hire, kind of idea, right? But of course, again, and I've talked about this in class, is it's also a place where employers look your name up to see what mischievous things you've been doing, right? So again, a positive or a negative, depends on how you look at it, right? Right. I'm going to say mass media / communication. right? From on social media platforms, we can be, you know, there's a tornado coming, there's a bad storm, there's a flood, there's a hurricane, there's, you know, whatever coming. So that mass media, that mass communication, I mean, law enforcement uses this lots to put out things to the public, but they also use it to track down criminals and things like that as well. So mass communication in this mass media, right? Now this is the United States statistics, so you can sort of extrapolate it to Canadian statistics if you want. But if you look at the age group of 18 to 34, which you folks are all in that age group, right? 47, almost 50% of people use social media for their news, right? And again, good or bad, right? That's the pro. What will be the con? What's the flip side of this then? Fake news, right? And we'll talk about that when we talk about the cons. But the ability for bad actors, you know, nefarious people, nefarious governments to give us misinformation. And they want to do that because they want to screw up the democratic process and you know, all kinds of different things. We'll talk about that in a minute. Cody, I also want to give it to your question. Yeah, so Cody put in the chat, does that number count the bots? Right. So if you're not familiar with likes and things like that, there are governments, there are companies that have bots that just keep hitting the like button automatically. It's not a person going, you know, on their phone pressing the button. It's a computer program that just keeps pressing like, making it look like it's more popular and that kind of thing. So there is software and hardware out there that can really skew those things. And if you've ever gone on Amazon, they have a warning about, you know, using fake likes and using bots to promote your products, you know, falsely when, you know. And again, to make it, you know, a 4 or higher on, you know, Amazon, so that if it's, you know, 4.6 out of 5, you're like, oh, I should buy that, right? So it's that kind of idea. Cody, is that what you're getting at?
Yeah, I was just wondering because, you know, there's so many bots out there that I'm wondering if it skews the numbers.
You know what? I'm sure.
But
I'm sure it does, right? Yeah, I'm sure it does. And I'm not sure. I don't know enough about it to say, well, there's a way to detect that or whatever. I don't know that, but I think you're right on the money there. So, okay. Let me just scooch on down here. So, of course, when we talk about the pros, right? Again, we talk about knowledge. Just like a little topic here: knowledge and learning. And just scooching back to AI for 1 second. So the newest thing I know that is come out of the ChatGPT company, OpenAI, is now they've come up with their own search engine. So I don't know if they're trying to put Google out of business or what they're trying to do, but now ChatGPT has their own web-based or search engine. So competition for Google. We'll see how that goes, right? And so we can use it for knowledge and learning. And one of the nice things about this is that there are no geographical boundaries, right? So we can learn and we can also teach anywhere, right? You can learn from somebody in India, just like somebody in India can learn from somebody in, you know, I don't know, California, right? So there are no geographical boundaries or barriers. And again, you could flip that and have a con out of that as well. So that goes also back to, if you remember, a to the 5th power, right? So 5 A's, right? So you can learn from anyone. You can learn anywhere, right? You can see Cody sitting on the beach right now learning, right? You can learn at any time, right? So it doesn't matter what time zone you're in, okay? Oh, speaking of time zones, don't forget, this weekend we set our clocks back an hour, right? We can learn on any device, right? Right now I've got an iPad, a MacBook, and a phone on the go, right? Any device. And I think one of the other important ones is at your own pace, right? So again, we can have videos and we can have all kinds of learning that we don't have to go, oh my God, Brad's just like, blah, 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 blah. And I, you know, I'm trying to keep up, but I can't, right? So that own pace thing, I think, is really important, that they can watch that video over and over and over and over and over again till they get it. Okay. And one of the ones that's not an A. So of course we know we've got all these A's here. That's where the A to the 5th power comes from. But I also think this one's really also important. And right, without permission, right? You don't need to ask the teacher to learn. If you want to learn something, you can just go online and learn it, right? And there's, you go to YouTube and you type in, I want to learn how to do, you know, some kind of carpentry thing. There's probably thousands of videos out there of how to do that one skill. So without permission. So, I mean, previous to the advent of these types of devices and the internet as well, again, us as teachers, we were kind of the gatekeepers of knowledge. And we had to give you permission to go to the library or to, you know, look at a book or whatever. Now you can learn in any format you want, right? Whether it be audio, video, text, whatever, it doesn't matter. You can have someone read it to you if you don't want to read it, right? That kind of idea. So we've got these 5 A's, and I think it's really important for us to know that. And again, I really think it's important for us to think about that without permission piece as well, is that therefore we need to be able to do in our classes something that keeps kids engaged or makes it meaningful for them. Okay. One of the other things about, and I think this one I totally agree with, is inclusivity, right? So everyone can be included, whether you got a gimped up knee and you can't walk, or you are in a wheelchair, or you've got some other exceptionality, or if you want to use the word disability, or you are diverse in any way. Social media and those types of products are a way for people to, I'll say, lessen, no, sorry, not that kind of lessen, I think we spell it like this way, lessen isolation. Okay. So again, anywhere, it doesn't matter whether you live in Tuktoyaktuk or you live in San Diego or you live at the North Pole with Santa Claus, right? You can be included if you've got an internet connection. And in this day and age, that people that don't have an internet connection are far and few between. And even if you are in the middle of the Sahara Desert, good old Elon Musk can hook you up with a Starlink satellite dish and you can have high-speed internet. So really, quite literally, anywhere in the world, you can have high-speed internet now. Now, of course, not everybody can afford it, but you know what I'm getting at here, right? So, so under the social media with this inclusivity is it breaks down barriers, right? And so when we plan activities and we do things in our classroom, one of the things we need to think about are what are the barriers here to whatever it is where I'm trying to teach or what our kids are trying to learn, right? And it might be technology. That might be a barrier. There's lots of different things that can be a barrier, but it can, again, when used positively and in the correct way and all that jazz, the whole idea of the internet, social media, it can break down these barriers and have everybody included. Okay. It also can be, I'm going to continue here, but I'm just going to go to a new page just so I don't have to write right at the very bottom like that. So also with social media, it can, oopsie, that's not a really good letter there. Let's try that again. It can be a lifeline, right? It can be a lifeline for people who feel marginalized. Okay. So again, whether, and people are marginalized in many different ways, right? And if we talk about marginalization, we can talk about people are marginalized by their race. They're marginalized by their ethnicity, right? Okay. They're also marginalized by sexual orientation. Okay, by gender, And the list can go on, but you see what I'm getting at, is that it can be a place for people that feel, are in these sort of different groups, to find like-minded people and create that kind of community where wherever the situation they're in now, or wherever they live right now, there's not people that are like-minded. So it's a great place for that. Okay. And again, so then people with similar backgrounds, right? So, you don't have to be marginalized. You could be a nurse, you could be a cop. Teachers, right? Teacher community. We lots of us on our social media platforms, we hook up with teachers around the world that have great ideas in their classroom. And it's like, oh, I want to do that. And my wife gets tons and tons of ideas from TikTok, right? And she follows all these, great teachers that are on the cutting edge of doing great things and cool things in their classroom. And she follows them and gets ideas. So similar backgrounds, similar preferences. I'll just put prefs down. And also identities, and people with similar identities, or however they're identifying. Okay. And all you social media people, what's one way how could I find those type of people? What's one thing that people do to sort of identify their messages? You all know the answer to this. It's hashtags, right? So hashtags, right? So hashtags are also a way that you can find like-minded people that are talking about the same kind of idea. And again, it could be anything. It could be politics. It could be learning. It could be anything. Okay. Also, of course, I don't have social media, but I do have YouTube Premium. And with YouTube Premium, first of all, there are no commercials. It is awesome, right? You got to pay for it. You have to pay for the premium service, but it also has kind of like TikTok, YouTube, called YouTube Shorts. And so one of the other pros then of social media is there is an entertainment factor. Did I spell that right? Entertainment, right? And I'll just say factor, right? And of course, we've got videos, we've got, everybody loves memes, those kinds of things, right? So there is this entertainment factor. And of course there's, live streams. What else do I got on there? There's, puzzles or games, right? And all these things keep us entertained in one shape or another, right? I have got to show you my favorite meme. I just got to pull this over to this screen here. All you flat earthers out there, this is my favorite meme. It might be of all time. A flat earth solar eclipse. I love it. It just makes me laugh every time I see it. Sorry, it's just my stupid sense of humor, but that's one of my favorite ones. So if you're a flat earther, we need to talk, I think. So, all right. Let's talk about YouTube Premium is 50. Oh, that's nice. That's great. I think I've said this before in class, but if I were to get rid of all my TV subscriptions to Crave and all the other channels that I've got, and anything else that I've got on my computer, the one that I would totally keep would be YouTube Premium, because you can watch anything you want on there. They've got YouTube Music. They've got everything that you could possibly want. And it's all in sort of one place, which is what I really, really like that. Okay. All right. So 50% off. That's awesome. Okay. New page. And so now we're going to go to the cons. Let's talk about the cons for a second. So I've already mentioned this. One of the cons is that let me back up here for a second. I was going to put social media. So social media can be distracting. One of the things that we know that, right? Hence the ban of cell phones in schools, right? Is that it can be really distracting and take away again from that teaching learning process. Okay. It also, again, we're kind of flipping the coin here on some of the things. It also, I just said a second ago that it connects people and all that jazz, but at the same time, it can be a contributing factor, in loneliness, and unhealthy comparisons, right? Unhealthy comparisons. And again, girls, again, I'm generalizing here, though. Girls are I don't know, more susceptible to these unhealthy comparisons than guys. I'm not saying guys can't be or they aren't, but it seems, again, the statistics seem to speak more to the female gender than to guys, right? And when we talk about this loneliness and unhealthy comparisons, I'm just going to say people in general, people paint their lives. I can't think of a better word than that. Paint their lives as, okay, here's a spelling test word. The epitome. Epitome, right? Like the peak, the top, right? The epitome of happiness and satisfaction. Right. And then we want to have a life like that, or we want to look like that, or we want to be like that. And sometimes that is unattainable for people. And again, if we put ourselves in the teacher's shoes for kids, right? And then we've got all these unhealthy things that are going on with boys and girls and kids. And again, people who identify otherwise, and again, it leads to all kinds of bad different things, right? Unhealthy. And one of the other words that we could add in here is, there's a sort of a sense of inadequacy. There's a word you don't spell very often, right? Is that, again, I'm not good enough, right? And again, then we think about I'm not good enough. That can lead to self-harm, in extreme cases, in suicide, and those kinds of things, because it's just, what's the point? I'm not good enough kind of idea. Okay. So we talk about the people painting their lives in this, I live in this beautiful life and all that kind of stuff. And I mean, I hope everyone lives a beautiful life, but we know that's not always true. Every day is not a perfect day. That, like Cody, can just be sitting on a beach, just doing your thing, right? So also, people use, and again, I'll just put social media this way, use social media dishonestly. Right? Again, we talk about painting these pictures, they use it dishonestly, but they can also use it for cheating. It is not uncommon for people to text answers to quizzes or test questions to one another and things like that. So there can be this element of dishonesty with phones and social media and those types of devices. And then, of course, how do I want to put this? I'll just say fake. I'm just going to say everything. Fake everything, right? And whether that be, news, I don't know, I'll say fashion, right? etc. Right? Just fake everything. So, and again, I mean, when I had social media, I really did get a kick out of Snapchat, and only all the filters and all the crazy things you can, use on Snapchat. But I really did like that. And then the next little topic here is digital permanence. Okay. And what I mean by that is what goes on the internet stays on the internet. So if you want to, you can write that, what goes on the internet goes on the internet, stays on the internet. Okay, so quick question. Has anyone out there in class heard of something called Wayback Machine? Anybody heard of that? So, of course, we all know that the internet's been around for a couple decades at least now. And what Wayback Machine does is it basically records everything on the internet. Now, that's a huge task. Think of that, right? But again, it's all computerized and it's all nuts. The people aren't, a person's not typing away, but it basically records and stores everything on the internet. And so you can go to Wayback Machine and go, you know what? 5 years ago, there was this really cool website that I used for teaching this subject in my classroom, but it doesn't exist anymore. You could go to use Wayback Machine and find it and view it like it was happening today. But here's really interesting. I think I said in class before, what happens with technology is that we build this mousetrap and then along comes a smarter mouse, right? So here's, again, one of the newest things I know about bad people on the internet is now these people, hackers, I guess, are going to Wayback Machine and going to these websites and think 20 years ago, internet security was nowhere near as good as it is now. And we know it's not even that good now, right? So they're going back in time and going, McKenna, she was on this website and now I've got this software that I can hack her password and I can see what username and password she used before. I can find out other personal information. And so they're using this thing called Wayback Machine. Now, again, it was invented for a good purpose, but then these people are using it now for criminal activity and things like that. Yep. So it's an internet archive. Exactly, Lucas. Okay. So anyways, just a little aside, but I find it quite interesting, right? So again, remember digital permanence. And again, I'm not going to harp at you about this because we've talked about it already, is that you want to create, this positive presence, right? Or if you want to use the digital footprint idea, this, positive footprint, so that if someone were to type in your name and say, Google your name or use whatever favorite search engine you want to use, that whatever they find would be paint you in a positive light and not in a especially again as a teacher, not in a light where it's like, I don't think we want to hire that person. Okay. And again, I've told you that employers do that all the time, right? Okay. So we know that if it goes on there, it stays on there. Of course, this one, if you were to think, if I were to ask, right, how would I ask? What's the number with kids? What's the number one bad thing that kids do to one another using social media or the internet? What would your answer be?
Bullying.
Yes. So our next one is cyber bullying. Okay. It's just taking the bully off the playground and put him, on that internet, right? Or into social media, right? So cyberbullying, is anything that includes, bullying in general, or harassment, right? Where somebody or some group of people are harassing or bullying another person, right? And of course, we know the effects of bullying is, first of all, it's highly traumatic. So anybody who's been bullied would know this. Traumatic. Okay. It causes great emotional distress. And you know where I'm going with this, right? It causes low self-esteem, right? Especially when you have people telling you how horrible you are, right? And of course, in extreme cases, it leads to self-harm. And of course, I guess the ultimate extreme case would be suicide, right? And the youngest I've heard of or read in the headlines of a kid being bullied online and then taking their own life was a kid who was 9 years old. So it makes me sick to think about it, actually. So yeah, horrible, horrible, horrible. Okay, so I'm going to throw a bunch of so when we talk about cyberbullying, there's a few terms that I think we need to know. And some of them I think you will know, and some of them you may not, but that'll be okay. So of course, if we talk about, let's call these behaviors. Okay, kind of like a little subtitle here. So first one is easy. Discrimination, right? So again, discriminating against someone for whatever reason. Again, and that's based on gender, age, ethnicity, race, sexual orientation, a disability, their religion, or anything else that you could be biased or prejudicial against a person with, right? And of course, you can add all those gender, age things if you want. So it's the same kind of idea. And these are in no order of importance or anything like this. What about, does anybody know what doxing is? Right? If you don't know what it is taking somebody's personal information and posting it online. So we'll write that down. Taking someone's, oopsie, that's not a very good S, Brad. Someone's info, and again, without their permission, right? And posting it online. And sometimes that would include something called their IP address. Does anybody know what an IP address is? An IP address is exactly like your home address, but it's just for your computer. So right now, online, if somebody had the tools, they could search my IP address and find literally exactly where I live. So taking that and giving that IP address to people would be like me taking all of your addresses right now, home addresses, and posting them online somewhere and saying, hey, if you want to, bully this person, or you want to go egg their house or something, here's where they live. So again, you gotta kind of know a little bit about computers and that kind of area to get a hold of somebody's IP address. But I'll tell you how law enforcement uses it, right? In cases where there is pedophiles and people who are trying to attract or lure children into situations that are sexual in nature, almost 9 times out of 10, they get caught by the law enforcement narrowing down the IP address and actually finding where that computer is. And then they arrest those people and take all of their computer equipment and stuff to prove that they've been doing things that they shouldn't be doing. Okay. And again, it doesn't have to be pedophilia. It could be bomb making. It could be anything that's a legal activity that law enforcement is interested in and tracking down exactly where that computer or that device is. So, so that's what your IP address does, is it locates you. Okay. All right. We're going to continue. I've just run out of room on my page, but we're going to continue on. And this one, maybe you've heard of, just outing. What is outing a person? What do you do? Well, if you know, hold on. If you don't know, it usually revolves around someone's sexuality or their gender, right? And so it will be something like this. If I used to be a girl and now I'm a guy, and I don't want anyone to know that, but somehow somebody finds out that's the case, that, oh, Brad used to be a girl, now he's a guy, and they tell the whole wide world on social media, that's outing, right? Or if I'm trying to hide the fact that I'm gay, and I don't want anyone to know, maybe especially my parents or something like that, and then somebody posts that online to the world, that's outing. So outing is revealing a person's sexuality, or gender identity without permission. And again, that is done, in a hurtful, harmful way, malicious way. So that's outing. What about trolling? And I'm not talking about the ones that live under a bridge, or one of the, the little ones that had the funky hairdo. What is trolling? Does anybody know? And it's not fishing either. So anybody know what trolling is? No? Trolling is when I purposely, pardon my language, just want to kind of stir up shit on the internet, right? And so I say things that just piss people off. I can't really say it any other way, right? So, it's when you're making inflammatory I'll say antagonistic comments. Here's a nicer way of saying it than I said. Comments to provoke, that's a nicer word, provoke others into arguments. Right? And so often my wife will read me something that someone said on social media, and I'll say, give me your phone. And she'll say, I am not giving you my phone. Right? So, because it's just like, it's just typing in a comment or whatever, just to kind of poke the bear, right? It's just like, oh, let's see what kind of reaction we can get out of this person. That's what trolling is. Okay. This one has nothing to do with bugs. It's called swatting. What's swatting? Well, Cody, if you give me your home address, I'll show you what it is right now. 911. Hi, I know this guy named Cody, and right now he's standing in his front window waving a gun at people walking by. And you know what happens? The SWAT team arrives and they come to a false call. So that's what swatting is when you call, instead of saying emergency services, I'm just going to say 911. When you call 911 to report a fictitious crime. Okay. And why it's called swatting, because usually it involves a SWAT team coming in and kicking doors down with guns raised and all that kind of stuff. So that's what swatting is. So again, and believe it or not, that happens a lot to people. Could you imagine at 4 o'clock in the morning, you're dead sleeping, right? And your door gets kicked in and all these, SWAT team members will rush in with their guns and, that kind of stuff. It'd be horrible. Okay. This one, I think we all know. Hacking, of course, is something else where we are trying to gain access to other people's social media accounts. Okay. And this just happened to my daughter's boyfriend. Somebody hacked his Instagram, and then because you're not supposed to use the same password for everything, got into his other accounts and then said, you know what? I've changed your password. I've locked you out. If you want access to your Instagram, you have to pay me money. So that's hacking, right? But you gain access to other people's accounts and send messages on their behalf. And it's not them. So, and then the last one is right along the lines of cyberbullying, but it's cyber stalking, right? I think we all know what a stalker is, I don't need to explain that, but then let's just put that online, where you are persistently contacting, and I'm going to use this word purposefully, the victim, right? And it could be where in the next half hour, somebody sends whoever they're stalking, 50 messages. Why won't you talk to me? Why, I hate you. Blah, 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 blah. They just keep persistently bothering that person. And again, of course, that can happen in face-to-face as well. So cyber stalking, right? And again, generally speaking, that doesn't typically happen to men, although it can and it does. But again, it mostly happens to ladies. And so again, unfortunately, that's sort of the way it is. Okay, so if I just scroll back up my notes, those are all sort of attached to or like a subtopic under cyberbullying, all those. So let's just add a couple more things. So of course, kind of a new, I don't know, however you're organizing your notes, but the next sort of big topic will be just misinformation. Okay, and we know, Donald Trump, has popularized the term fake news, right? So misinformation, of course, then is fake news. But why do people post fake news, right? It's fake news to manipulate or distract people from the real story. From real story. Okay, and we all know, I think, this is a big problem, right? And again, it's about making us, trying to sway us to believe something else. And of course, now that we have this, the presidential election happening in the United States, this is what it's all about: is fake news on social media, trying to get people to vote in one way or another. And it's not necessarily Donald Trump or his people or Kamala Harris doing her thing. It's foreign governments. It's people who want, for whatever reason, want to sway the election in one way or the other to satisfy or their own agenda, whatever that might be. Okay, so that's what kind of fake news is, and it can be anything. It doesn't even have to be politics, right? It could be anything. We know, again, just under that same topic of misinformation, it is difficult. And again, we think about digital citizenship and digital literacy. It's difficult to filter out the truth. Filter out the truth, right? So, and with that, it's like I don't even know what's real anymore, right? That kind of idea, right? So then, I mean, again, the whole idea is that it, or the purpose is it leads to confusion. Like, I don't even know who to believe anymore, right? It leads to distrust. I don't trust that person or that, whoever, political party or whatever. So it leads to confusion, distrust. Oh, geez, distrust. Here, let me back that up here for a second. Distrust and division. I want to divide people, right? I want to break these people up, and I want to divide them, and again, for all kinds of different reasons. So that's important that we know that. Okay, and then another spelling test word: algorithms. Okay. Exactly, Kara. Like creating your whatever narrative that you want people, or try to convince people that's true. So algorithms, right? Algorithms are just computer code that aligns with your beliefs. And here's how it works, if you don't know. Okay, is that when I go on a Facebook or I go on whatever social media and I start typing up Donald Trump and I start reading articles about Donald Trump and how wonderful he is or how not wonderful he is or whatever it is, then what happens is that platform keeps feeding me stories that are similar and keeps feeding me stories that are similar. But the con of it is that it never gives you the other side of the coin, where here I just want articles about how wonderful Donald Trump is or how wonderful somebody is or whatever. And you just keep getting those articles and you never get the ones that paint them in another, light or whatever. So algorithms display content based on our interests, Okay. And they don't give you the alternative view, our interests, beliefs and values, right? So if I went on social media and started looking things about white supremacy or things like that, I would keep getting more and more articles, more and more posts about that, but it doesn't give you, or it doesn't show you, show diverse opinions. So I'll tell you, one of the things that I do to combat that when I read Google News or whatever is I subscribe to things like Al Jazeera English, right? Do you think that people in the Middle East, the Arabic people and stuff, have a completely different view of the West than we do? 100%, right? So if you want a diverse opinion, or you want to see what else is going out there in the world and what they think about Canada, or what they think about North America or the United States, go to websites like that are non-North American, and you will get diverse opinions, right? And so I like I said, I subscribe to Al Jazeera English, so that I can sometimes read stories. Like if I read something and go, I can't believe that, I'll go and kind of fact check it, right? So that's one of the things that we need to teach kids, again, is that fact checking, and that you're going to keep seeing the things that you want to see, because that's how these social media platforms are programmed. Okay. And then of course, all of this whole idea about misinformation is it's all about, mostly anyways, all about interfering. I think interfering has 2 R's. I don't know. No, I don't know. I'm going to spell it like this. Interfering with the democratic process. Democratic process to influence, I'll say, politics. Right? And the thing you have to think about too, and just please don't be naive, that it's not just the Chinese or the Russians or the North Koreans or whoever, pick your bad guy, right, doing that to us. We do it to them just as much, right? You think the United States isn't trying to hack into Russia's computers, or into China or North Korea or whatever? Absolutely, they are. If you don't believe me, look up something called Stuck. You don't have to write this down here. Look up something called Stuxnet. And if you don't know what Stuxnet is, it's all about the Americans hacking the Iranian or the Iraqi, one of the two of those, their whole nuclear program, and shutting it down by ruining their machinery. And so Stuxnet. So again, you don't think that we're doing it to them? It's a two-way street where everybody's doing it to everybody. So. Okay. So again, it's about interfering, right? And it might not just be with, voting on voting day or whatever. It could be turning off the power to half of the United States so they can't vote, or doing something that disrupts our day-to-day lives in a place that we live, that we can term, or very loosely call, a democracy, right? So so there's all kinds of things that happen. Okay. Next kind of new topic is mental health. Right? We've already a little bit talked about how social media can affect our mental health. Right? It gives us, I'm going to use this word, airbrushed version of life. What's an airbrush? Does anybody know what that is? It's like a little painting gun that you press a button and it sprays paint on whatever canvas you want. That's airbrushing, right? And they use it in art. They use it in makeup. They use it in different things. And when I just want to bring up this video. Hold on, give me 1 sec. I want to show you kind of what airbrushing is. And I meant to add it in here, but I don't have it. So let's go to YouTube Premium for a second. And you'll know you have YouTube Premium if it says Premium up here. Okay. I just want to go Dove Airbrush Commercial. Oh, you know what I want. See if I can find the one I'm looking for. This one right here. Okay, it's 1:14. I'm going to share this with you because it's not going to display well if I just share it with you. So I'm just going to paste the link. I'm just going to call it Dove. Okay. And I want you to watch. It's 1:14. And I just threw that in the chat. All right, did you watch it? Cody, give me a nod. You're the only person I can see. Did you see it? Give me a thumbs up using the little emoji icon when if you've watched it. Okay, and so that's what I'm getting at when I talk about airbrushing, right? Is that they make this girl look so beautiful, but you know, if it wasn't for Photoshop, you know, she wouldn't look like that. And on a day-to-day basis, she doesn't look that way, right? So so again, this airbrushed version of reality is what we get, right? You get it on a magazine cover. You don't have to even go on social media or the internet. You get it on with a like on a magazine cover or any kind of magazines, right? And then of course, we talked about this already, but I'm just going to say people, and again, you can say kids if you want, become increasingly dependent on likes, comments, and shares to feel good about themselves, to feel good about themselves. And I'm going to give you two other examples. These are a little bit more old-fashioned. They're certainly not technology-based. Have you ever ordered anything on Amazon and you've anticipated the arrival of your newest thing that you bought and you just can't wait, right? And then when you get it, you feel great. It's like, oh my God, look, I got it, right? You're getting the same hit of dopamine as it is when you're getting a like or a comment or whatever on social media. Or, right, here's one for me. I just went to my went to H&R Block and got my taxes done. And I know I'm going to get, I'll make a number. I'm going to get $5,000 back on my tax return, right? And I cannot wait for that amount of money to arrive. And when it does, the check or it arrives in your account or whatever, you're like, oh, there it is, right? So going to the mailbox and anticipating something good in the mail is the same idea as what we're talking about here online. Is that we get these likes and comments and they make us that release of that dopamine. It makes us feel good. Okay. Another one here. So we got mental health. How about lack of interest in other activities, right? Right. So I've said this many times before, is that, you know, I live in a neighborhood where there's a school literally 700 meters away from me, and I never see kids outside playing. How come that? Why is that? Right? And there may be a lot of different reasons, and there are a lot of different reasons, but is it because kids are in playing video games, or is it because they're on their phones, or you know, why is it? So, but again, once you get into this cycle of being in social media and wanting those likes and needing those likes and things like that, there's a lack of other things. Not uncommon. Oh, I'm sorry, guys. I didn't realize we're out of time. But not uncommon to a drug addict, right? As soon as you get hooked on those drugs, you lose interest in other things. So let's stop here. And I will catch you next week. Have a great weekend. Thanks for putting up with me. You should have said, Brad, stop talking. But anyways, have a great weekend. Thank you for being here. And if you got anything that you need help, stick around. If you don't, head on out. But if you need help, stick around and I'll help you online here. Okay. Thanks, everybody. And I'm just going to stop the recording, but I'm just going to stay online here still.
Take care.